From a challenge in a bar to the 90th running of the premier mountain race of the summer and an Alaskan Independence Day tradition, Mount Marathon, a race that demands speed, strength, guts, and endurance. Who will triumph? Find out now.
Alaska at its best on this July 4th. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to our coverage of Mount Marathon, the 90th running of this great Alaskan tradition. Dave Goldman, along with Clint McCool and Emily Carlson of KTVA, has joined us as well. It is the third leg of this race today, and now it is the men's turn. Already the juniors have come in, a couple of multiple winners there. We also had a performance and another legend which grew a little more from the ladies division, and now the gentlemen are ready to take it on. Clint McCool, we've discussed it a little while ago. We have, well, what we expect to be a 2, 3, 4 horse race perhaps. You never know there's a dark horse, but right now, boy, one guy named Patterson's looking awfully strong.
He is. Right now, he's just by far the most fit guy in the group, and he's already coming off of 2 victories this summer in the other mountain races, and he won them in very impressive fashion. So, without a couple of the other gentlemen that couldn't make it back this year, you certainly have to be looking at Scott as the front runner. That being said, there are several very experienced runners, and Eric Strabel, Jim Shine is back this year in very good shape. Matthias Sari. There's a new kid, Kenny Brewer. I shouldn't say new, but he's one on the younger side, and he's had a couple of great races this summer too.
So, as you mentioned, one of the big hooks here is that last year's champion David Norris is not here. The skier from APU has Olympic aspirations, and he's focusing on that. Nick Elson out of British Columbia from Squamish also not racing as the number 2. But again, you never know with this thing. You never count out a guy like Strabel, who's been playing a little bit of that, that little pigeon this thing there. Well, maybe not this year. Well, we all know with Strabel, if he's up at that top of the hill and within a minute of Scott Patterson, who appears to be coming in very fit, you never know. Very much looking forward to it as well. Emily Carlson, you know what? As we have a chance here, as the runners get ready to go 30 seconds away, you were on that hill today again. Another finish, another personal best for you. You had that camera on you too. Tough course, tough trail, and you certainly earned it today.
Muddy going up. Once you hit the halfway point, tons of flies coming down. Here they go. Coming down, it was pretty slippery too with the cliffs. I know a lot of the guys were asking me, how are the cliffs coming down? They were super slippery. I had to be very, very careful. I took twice as much time as last year because most of the guys go on the waterfall, so I think it's a tough decision. Cliffs or waterfall today?
Well, it's one of those many questions. We discussed it throughout the ladies' race, and here we go. And it's one of those first moments right away, Clint, that you're always watching. You really, every second counts in this thing if you're trying to win it, and already the strategy begins getting to that point where you can make the hill climb right away.
Absolutely. Anybody not familiar with the race, I mean, you just can't understand how imperative it is to get to the mountain, because once you get to the mountain, the crowd bottlenecks. The trails are very narrow. It actually becomes just single file. So you can imagine having 200 people running next to you, and you get to, all of a sudden there's a point where it's single file. So getting to the mountain in the lead, especially for the competitive runners, is imperative. They simply can't allow themselves to be back behind more than a half a dozen guys.
It didn't take long for the top 3 in the ladies today to separate themselves quickly. Allie, of course, getting another victory. And again, Christy Marvin and Morgan Aratola, who also had a very, very fine performance. Denali was also in there as well, finishing 4th. Those 3, you could say, were right there, front and center, and separated, and then the race was really on. And we see the same thing now for the men.
Those 4 ladies led all the way to the mountain, and that is a tremendous advantage because they just don't have to spend anywhere near the unnecessary energy that people further back in the pack do, because you have to work your way through and pass where it's extremely narrow and slippery. The women had it a little worse than the guys today because it was a little wetter earlier on, but now that it's dried out a bit more, the men should fare a little better on the lower mountain. And even right now, we're seeing the front runners are beginning to stretch out that margin. For someone like Scott, you know, he doesn't have to be number 1 to the mountain. He just has to make sure he's in the top handful so he doesn't get bogged down behind anyone.
You've mentioned that the downhill then becomes key with Eric Strabel. That is one of his expert areas, so he's got to keep this thing close. We discussed that just a short time ago with some of our social media watchers on Facebook Live. Strable, of course, wants to be in this thing. Patterson, who knows, maybe there's a dark horse as well, but those are the guys you're really focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's several guys that can definitely turn this into a serious race. I mean, like I said, we're looking at Scott, but there are several other guys that are very, very fit, and in some ways, you know, the pressure's off of them. Everybody is looking at Scott, so it gives a Strable or a Shine the ability to just sort of relax, and if they're within striking distance of him at the top, anything could happen.
When we saw the downhill, Allie actually, I don't know if you know this, Emily, Allie took 4 spills on the shale.
I heard.
4 little ones, you know, but and she got up quickly and was able to reestablish herself. How about for you? How was the shale?
The shale was actually excellent for me because it had a little bit more give. It was wet, it was gravel, so I felt really good coming down. But if you're not used to that give, and I don't know how long, I saw her last weekend on the mountain, I don't know how many times she's been up and down, but it was good. It was when you got to the gut and there was water and the rocks were really slippery. That's where I got a little nervous.
Well, we felt as we watched this that you were going to earn it today. We saw a lot of dirt. We saw a lot of blood. We saw a lot of everything. Nobody came down from that thing clean today. Nobody.
No, not at all. And again, the men are going to have it a little bit easier in that regard than the women did. But you know, if you don't come down off of this thing bleeding, then you just didn't try hard enough.
So the start underway of the first wave of the men here on Mount Marathon, our 90th running of it. This is a race that's been run since the early 1900s, 1915, the first official race. They haven't run 100. They've actually only run 90. None were run in the early 1920s. They were building a railroad. Then in the mid-30s, from 1933 to 38, and then 1942 from World War II. Getting set now for our wave number 2. And again, for folks not familiar with this, this is a standard procedure in a lot of races because we want to separate the front runners and those who are going to have a chance to win this from the folks who are here just to cross it and take care of their own personal records.
Yeah, this is a new institution that's only been around for, I think, 7 or 8 years. Before that, we all started as one wave, but as they tried to expand the field to allow a few more runners in, we had to go to a wave start because having 350 guys hit the mountain at once, it was just unworkable. Now they've got it down to 175 in each wave, and it's a little better.
It's kind of nice from my perspective because I was in the second wave, so I was actually one of the first women to hit the mountain in the second wave, and that gave me a really big advantage going up the routes.
Right.
You don't have to pass anyone. It's nice.
Right. Yeah, that first group of ladies are just zooming along, and you can do your thing. And
I'm not going to win the race.
you found your. You're not.
Follow. No.
You know, for 6 months we were sitting there on set with you saying, "Carlson, you got a chance here. Come on."
Yeah, you were.
Well, I was.
You were.
Someone has to help it. Well, we've got some costumes here. Second wave, you got an opportunity for a little more fashion statement too.
You get a few more of the Mount Marathon characters in there that have a persona all their own. So we get a shot of Patterson here. He's your front runner. He's wearing number 4 because he finished 4th place last year. When you look at their bib numbers, you'll be able to see of the top 50, they give you your bib number from the previous year, the place from the previous year. And you know, Scott's running right through here. You won't see very many of the guys doing this. This is just a testament to his fitness, and he's already gapping the rest of the field. He's just, like I said from the beginning, his strategy is to pile it on early on, and he's going to try to build a lead to the top that he can then ride to the finish. He really doesn't want to have to duel with anybody coming down the mountain, partially because of his aspirations to make the Olympic team this next year.
Again, we're seeing what we've seen the years past as we see them work those routes. Runners and fitness. Killian Jornet 2 years ago. Just subhuman, it seemed like. Just superhuman.
Yeah.
Last year, David Norris, the same kind of thing. Just fitness that you had to see to believe. And I think we're seeing some of that now with some of these runners, especially with Patterson. And for a lot of folks who may not be familiar with him, he's everything is advertised, too. And that's one of the reasons why he's got the Olympic aspirations.
Yeah, that was interesting. We just saw going through in number 3 at this point appears to be Lars Sharon Troen. He's an out-of-state professional runner, and he just went through in either 3rd or 4th place. So we'll see if that develops into something. He's one of those dark horses. Here goes Eric Strabel, big smile on his face. He's enjoying himself. He may not be feeling too much pressure today. He looks like he's just kind of having fun.
Well, he downplayed expectations. I talked to him a couple days ago, and he said, you know what, I haven't been on the mountain as much. I climbed it maybe twice in the last 3 or 4 months. I just want to have fun, and the pressure is off.
No, 36 years old. He's accomplished so much already in the career. As a junior, and of course in the men's division as well. And he looks and says, you know what, I'm going to enjoy it. We saw the same thing with Christy Marvin this year. More time with the family, more time with the kids. I don't think it certainly hurt her in the conditioning. Allie was just simply better today than everybody else in the field. But Christy, I think we all could say, ran a very, very good race.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Allie had an outstanding race. So did Christy. Again, as we mentioned earlier in the early broadcast, Christy this year was focusing more on running pro pass and some of the longer distance races, and really hadn't been climbing as much. And you could tell she had a fantastic performance, but her climbing was a bit off of where it's been in the last couple of years.
So the second wave about to go here, as you can see, making those routes now and finding their way up. And the fans, again, packed at different spots. This may be unusual for the viewers to see folks say, hey, come on, you got to enjoy it. At different lengths right here. Maybe not water passes at this point, but here they are. It's a good place, and you can probably get as up close and personal as you would expect on a race, and this is the good spot to do it.
Yeah, and you can see here how they're all kind of being squished together now. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that's the widest part of the entire race until you get to the halfway point. From here on up, it's all single track. You got your, I hate to say it, but you have your nose right up against the guy in front of you's back end, and it's going to be that way for the next 20 minutes.
Make a train.
And I don't know how the men are, but the ladies are very friendly about passing.
Sure.
You just say, hey, can I pass? And they step off the side, or they'll kind of scooch over, and they're very gracious about, if you want to go, you go, girlfriend. I got a couple of those.
And it's one of these, and it's listed in the rules too. It's more than just a protocol. It's listed there. It's what you're supposed to do so that you're not hindering other folks.
Sure, yeah.
It's good to hear that, too.
It is. It's considered good trail etiquette, and it is actually outlined in the rules. But even if it wasn't in the rules, these guys all are, everybody here is part of a community. We're here to celebrate the race, and they will give it their all. But as you approach somebody, it's protocol to just say left, which tells them that you're passing on the left, and they're supposed to just move over as much as they can to reasonably accommodate you. Because you have to keep in mind, these trails are so narrow that you can't pass unless the person in front of you is kind of cooperative in allowing you to.
Well, to give an idea of the camaraderie, I think it was 2 years ago, we saw that water bottle being passed back and forth. There was 3 guys up at the front. It was Killian, Strabel,
Ricky.
and Ricky, and back and forth, and there they go. And you don't see that too often in too many competitions.
Yeah, no, the mountain running community is great about that. I mean, if one of these guys falls and there's anybody around them, they will even stop in the middle of their race to make sure that person's okay and to give them a hand up. So here, for the viewers, we're seeing one of the unique things about Mount Marathon is there is no one set trail. The only rule is you have to start from downtown, you have to go around that darn rock on top of the mountain, and you got to finish right back down in front of the saloon where this race all started. But in between time, you can take any route you want. There's one of the characters, the Birdman, Brian Stoker, always in his full regalia. But the trail race is unique because you can go any way you want. There's a lot of variation. And that's why there's so many of us that come down and spend a lot of time working on the mountain, memorizing the different routes, trying to find the fastest way. This little section right here earlier that we were just showing you earlier today is where we saw a woman sliding backwards. She was sliding down that slope because it was so slippery. But now you saw the guys going up it with a lot less difficulty.
So I took a right there, and that's very brushy, and I had never taken a right because, Clint, I went up with you 2 years ago, and you said always take a left.
Always go left.
And it was very muddy, and I didn't want to risk it, so I went right, and I'd never been on that portion of the mountain before. So that's a risk you take. Like, do you go on a path that you've never practiced before?
Right.
And for me, it didn't turn out well.
Right. And then that's coming down, repetition. But you'll see the guys over on the far left, and they're actually going to have better footing. Even there, you can see this gentleman's kind of tiptoeing across this open. You can't tell from viewing it, but that's like a slide. You can see the guys here that are scrambling and losing their feet. It's very, very steep right there.
It's a 34-degree angle incline on the average. The steepest is at 60.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of what you're doing. You're looking uphill, folks. And on a day like today when it's warming up, they're certainly feeling it.
Yeah, it is extremely steep. And at home, you may not be realizing it. It may not look like these guys are even moving that fast. But you have to remember just how steep this mountain is. Patterson is an Olympic caliber athlete, and he's even struggling with the pitch here. And you see these guys that are sliding out. They're barely able to keep their footing because it's so muddy. It's still muddy enough.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way that fellow in the yellow shirt there with his feet all the way out.
He's duck walk.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, they should have taken the left-hand turn over here because it's got more texture, it's got more grass, and that's why, Emily, when in doubt, especially if the mountain's wet, you always go left.
Yeah.
So there you go. Note for next year.
That was my mistake.
All right.
If it's wet, you definitely always go left.
Well, you still had a good time, though.
Yeah.
I did. I actually trained. I had a child 3.5 months ago, so I actually was training more than I was last year.
Oh, it's a great incentive to get back on the mountain.
Exactly.
You've been training all the time.
They're carrying a little extra weight there.
For sure.
Little weight work.
For sure. By the way, folks, if you've been tuning us in the last few years, thank you. We're glad to have you with us. And if it's your first time, thank you for joining us and trying it out here. I hope you enjoy the experience. This is a new camera that we have in here, one of our new ones. We had 17 throughout the mountain there, almost 2 miles of cable, and 13 audio spots that we can pick everything up. Hopefully we'll be able to keep our FCC license. But this camera right here really gives you a great idea inside. Clint says it's warm, it's muggy, it's hot. Sometimes some bugs as well, and you see the roots here, and any one of these roots can also throw you off and become a real hazard too.
Yeah, and you have to, you also, as I said before, keep in mind, this is the easy part of the trail. This is still wide open, and you can move. They're heading into the bushes where it is just sweltering. Even on a cool day like this, it's just muggy and humid, and you got the bugs. They've been something else today. They were swarming earlier. We saw them, they were literally just coating people's shirts.
We've not seen bugs like that here. I can't remember when.
I was here last weekend, and there was some bugs, but once you got out of the trees, there was no bugs. And this year, you were almost at the top of the mountain. I was looking at the woman in front of me climbing, and she had 12 bugs just on the back of her shirt. And I had some bugs on my arm. They didn't bite me, but it was just more in your eyes. I had them in my hair. An annoyance.
Some really interesting footage here we're getting via drones this year, which gives you a whole new perspective on this race. We're able to follow them. In about 1 minute, the leaders are going to pop out of the trees, and we're going to get a really good view as to what's happening in terms of the competition. In just about a minute from now, they'll come visible, coming out of the trees and approaching the halfway point.
It's a good time for me to ask you, both of you, actually, because I know, Emily, you follow Killian through social media, and Clint, obviously, you got your finger on this thing as well. 2 years ago, of course, he comes in and he just obliterates everything. Last year, doesn't come back for it. His girlfriend, obviously, Emily, who also won it in 2015, didn't. The question is, and of course, he's been busy conquering Mount Everest this year. Will he ever come back, do you think?
Yeah, actually I have high hopes that Killian will come back. He said when he was here before that he really wanted to come back. It just didn't coincide with his efforts to try to set a new speed. There's Scott, and he is charging.
He's running.
Just about exactly where I said he should be. He came out of the trees at 15.5 minutes.
I'm trying to
last year, the fastest time on a record-breaking pace was to hit the halfway point in about 16 minutes and 50 seconds. So he is not far off of that right now. And you can see he's got a commanding lead. As I said, his strategy all along was to try to build up a huge lead, just using his fitness so that he could control his descent, mitigate the possibility of hurting himself. And he's climbing all alone. There's nobody anywhere near him.
Wow.
Did a feature on him, our station did, or John Thane did, connected with him. So, you know, he was very humble about everything, but I think even when talking, he felt like, hey, if he does what he's supposed to do, he has a great shot in winning this thing, because he is in such terrific shape right now. One of the best athletes, if not the best in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. He's approaching the post there for the viewers at home is the halfway point. It's not the halfway point in terms of time. It's the halfway point in terms of your elevation gain. That's where the juniors turn around and begin their descent. And Scott is there. He's got, already at this point, he looks like he's probably got close to a 2-minute lead. and he just passed a pipe just barely off a record pace. He's about 10 seconds off of Norris's record pace last year. So it becomes difficult for him though, because he's running alone. He's not being pushed by anybody. The only person he's racing is himself. And you know, that's what he wanted. He wanted to build a comfortable lead, but it's going to make it more difficult for him to perhaps challenge the record when you don't have anybody there to push you.
How often you checking the watch? Yeah.
He's looking
behind him. Who's there? Who's there? No one. No one.
Yeah,
no
nothing.
one.
He's looking because, of course, you never want to be surprised, but there is nobody anywhere. I'm blown away. I mean, I expected him to have a couple of minutes by the top. I didn't expect him to have a couple of minutes by halfway.
We were a bit surprised last year with David Norris, not again discussing the skill level of Norris, because he's tremendously fit. We weren't as surprised watching Killian Jornet a couple of years ago, because we knew what kind of credentials he had coming in, world class. Patterson seems to be taking that same early pattern right now.
Yeah, again, that is just some fantastic footage we're getting from the drones. That's a view that we've never seen before in the race. It's a whole new perspective. It's really, really cool, I have to say. But yeah, when Killian was here a couple of years ago, we had the best in the world, and everybody knew that, and so we had very high expectations, and he lived up to them. What was really, I thought, really entertaining last year during our broadcast was to see Norris, a local guy, go out there and better even Killian's mark. For those who aren't really familiar with the race, this race has been going on for a very long time, but there was a record set back in the 1980s by Bill Spencer that stood for 32 years, I believe. And I, as a racer myself for 20-some years at this place, we all kind of looked at that mark like it may never get broken. And here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. In the last 4 years, the record's been broken 3 times out of the last 4 years and taken down almost another 2 full minutes. So the level of these athletes, the international athletes that have been coming, and some of our local, especially the cross-country skiers, there's Dave giving a thumbs up.
He looks happy there.
He does.
He feels good. He's got a great cadence going. He's comfortable. I mean, he's pushing. He's pushing hard, but he's comfortable.
And walking right through, I mean, he could sit there and shake hands and try and curry votes at this point. Look at him, a little stumble there.
Sure, no, he's moving.
And Clint, you would know, David Norris last year had been up the mountain maybe 1.5 times,
right,
and broke the record. Do you know how many times Scott's been up?
Scott's been up a bit more than that. I mean, he came back here this year. Last year he finished 4th, but for any of the viewers who didn't see the race, that number is very deceiving. Scott was actually the 2nd to the top. He was not far behind David Norris last year. However, on the way down, he did a pretty significant roll with one ankle. And then he said another 5 minutes later, he twinged it again. And then a few minutes later, he twinged it again. And at that point, he decided to back off and just took it easy coming down the rest of the mountain because he didn't want to seriously hurt himself. So even though he's wearing number 4, realistically, he was more like number 2 last year if it hadn't been for the ankle.
And again, that's something that people need to consider here, is that although he's looking for victory at Mount Marathon, he's got his eyes on some very big prizes, and that would be the Olympics.
Yeah.
Which is why David is not here.
Yeah, absolutely. David, he had a little bit of an injury earlier in the spring. He had some knee irritation, and it's fine now, but he said he's feeling really good, and he just doesn't want to jeopardize anything in the future by irritating it anymore. But Scott is just running away with this, which we did expect, but he's going even at even a better clip than I thought he would be able to go to all by himself.
You know.
Yeah, well, I can't really tell from this particular angle, but it looks to me,
wow,
from that angle, he's got 2.5 minutes on the guy behind him. You know, on the screen it may not look that far, but you got to remember how steep this is. That's probably 2.5 minutes.
Everything looks easy when you're sitting there and watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, too, you take a look at how the second runner is doing and the posture and the cadence there, too.
Yeah, we weren't quite close enough for me to identify that guy, but as we get a little closer, we get a closer shot of him. I'll be able to tell you who's going. Oh, wow. That's a little bit. Yeah, that's a little surprising. That's Eric Johnson, and he was hard to recognize with the beard. He doesn't always have that big of a beard going on, but yeah, he's a super strong climber, and he's kind of making it look like he's out for a Sunday stroll with that baseball cap and stuff on. A little out of character, but he's making a strong run at it and holding on second place with quite a bit of margin, actually.
Now he's going up heavy. Is he able to maintain that for the rest of the way?
That'll be the question. He's a pretty strong downhiller, but climbing is more his strength. And just a minute ago, they showed he took a different route. He's very, very familiar with the mountain, and he took a different route down there just below. Because he's come down here enough and he spends enough time that he knows the other way to go. Eric's actually from Seward originally, and so he knows this mountain very well.
Well, folks, if you're trying to get some perspective on this, and I know it's difficult even this way, just think of it this way. These guys climbing this mountain, think about you climbing the stairs at home, and then thinking about continually climbing the stairs, and you got to keep going.
It's way worse. And if you notice the gloves help a lot. And I don't know what these guys are wearing, but most of the women wear just plain gardening gloves. You can pick them up at the store for $5. They work great. You can put them in your back pocket when you need them on this shale, and you're going to need them on this shale.
Yeah, now that's Kenny Brewer right there in 4th place, and
he's working hard.
He's a younger guy, but he's working hard. I mean, I don't know if you can tell from this TV screen, but his pants are soaking wet. I mean, it's only 60 degrees outside, but his pants are literally soaking wet from the sweat.
How well will they sleep tonight after this?
Well, they'll sleep very well. Everybody tomorrow is going to have extremely sore legs. That's Jerry Ross in 5th place. He's having a great race. Yeah, a fantastic race for him. He was hoping to crack the top 10, and right now he's in number 5.
So, Clint, talk about the downhill, because you can be number 1 to the uphill, but then downhill is a whole different ball game.
It completely is. And as I mentioned earlier, last year Scott was in 2nd place very handily. He had a huge lead on 2nd place, but all it took was one ankle sprain, and on the way down, he went from 2nd place to 4th place, and lost over 2 minutes. Conversely, we've had individuals who have had spectacular downhills. Eric Strabel is the fastest in history, but Brad Bukowski, during his 6 wins, was known for his downhill. And he would sometimes come from as far as 2 minutes back on the top of the mountain and still pull out a victory. Christy Marvin a couple of years ago had an amazing downhill for the women, and ended up she lost the race by 2 seconds, but she made up almost 2 minutes.
This is a good opportunity, as we did it in the ladies' race, and I wanted to bring it up again. If you're in the state of Alaska watching us, you know about this. If you're watching from outside the state, it's been quite a year for us over the last few months with bears. And sadly, we lost a couple of people to bear incidents, bear maulings, and there have been just a boatload of sightings, and a ton of them around Anchorage and throughout the state of Alaska. And it was obviously a concern here as well. It is on the website right there, loud and proud in the front there. If you're a volunteer or you're coming up to watch, bring the bear spray. It's something that I know that's on the minds of everybody here.
Well, so far the race is certainly playing into Scott's hands. His strategy is paying off. He's just going to take advantage of his fitness and build himself a real comfortable lead. And he's a little bit off of record pace at this point, but he's still obviously doing an extremely good job of building that lead.
Sorry, I'm trying to get past your frame.
He looks comfortable. He just doesn't look like he's remember we saw Killian Jornet do it a couple of years ago, where he just looked like he was having a stroll, you said.
Yeah.
When he was coming down the pike, finishing up, I remember you said he could do it again if he wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like Patterson could be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Patterson, his cadence has slowed down a little bit, because I think he just feels like he's very comfortable. He's even his posture, his back's not even arched really much at this point, and he's not working nearly as hard as he could. He's still moving really, really well though, and he'll save a little bit for the downhill to make sure he's comfortable, not take any chances. But I don't see anybody getting anywhere near him unless he takes an unforeseen fall.
So we'll bring our clock in for the first time today as we push 27 minutes now And Clint can look at this one as well as his own, because he does, folks. If you're standing here with us, he either has his eyes on a monitor or the racers, or he's got his eyes on that watch there. And Patterson right now doesn't even need a watch. He doesn't have one, and frankly, he doesn't need anything to pace himself right now, does he?
No. For you folks at home, record pace last year for David Norris, made it to the top of the mountain in about 30-30. The exact split, I think, was 30-20, 30-28. So Patterson's got about 3 minutes to round the rock if he wants to be pushing that record pace. And I'm not sure he'll make it, but in either case, he's got a very, very commanding lead.
How important are record splits to these racers?
Well, you know, all races are different. For myself, my splits were extremely important because they just let me know where I was. And I have dozens of splits on this mountain where I can look down and I can check my watch and I know that I'm 2 seconds ahead of my pace, or I'm 5 seconds ahead, or I'm 5 seconds behind. And that tells me, you know, just kind of where I need to push. And it also allows me to stay within myself. You want to break your record, but you also have to be careful, because if I'm going too fast, I'm going to blow up.
But Scott doesn't have a watch, so I carry a watch. I like to know my splits. So what do you think is behind the mentality where I don't even need to carry a watch?
You're absolutely right. There are some racers who prefer not to watch the clock. They just want to listen to their own internal tempo. And they're just constantly monitoring, if you will, it's like a tachometer in a car. They're monitoring their own tachometer and just monitoring that and maximizing their efficiency.
All right, let's step out for our first break as Scott Patterson ready to get to the summit. We'll jump out, come back in just a moment. Our coverage of Mount Marathon, the 90th running, back after this.
This presentation of the 90th running of Mount Marathon is sponsored in part by Alaska Foot and Ankle Specialists. Stride on.
Hi, I'm Randy. Just your average Alaska guy, though right now, not so average. But thanks to my life jacket, I'm still alive. When my boat swamped, I was able to send out a distress signal.
There he is.
Good thing I promised my kid I'd wear my life jacket. Without it, I probably would have drowned.
Hey, buddy.
Hear that?
We got you.
Sounds like I'm gonna make it.
You're gonna be okay.
Make the pledge to live. Wear a life jacket.
Tell me how the day unfolds. 11 keeps me in the know. The feeling is so fine, I gotta say. You're everywhere, got you everywhere. Everywhere I roam. You're everywhere, got you everywhere. Everywhere I go. Go. Everywhere I go.
And welcome back to our coverage here on KTVA, GCI Channel 907, KTVA.com. However you're joining us, we thank you on this July 4th, and happy Independence Day to you and yours. Dave Goldman, Clint McCool, Emily Carlson, our entire crew here with a great shot from Seward and Mount Marathon. That's terrific to see, as Scott Patterson working his way to the top and just running away literally from the field, Clint.
He is. He's approaching the top lip of the mountain right now, and he is about 30 seconds off of David Norris's record pace last year. But last year himself, he ran to the top in 31:50, so he's right on track to match his own time from last year, which is still a remarkably fast time, probably the third or fourth fastest uphill ascent in history. And he's looking super, super strong. He's got a huge lead over second place, which is currently Eric Johnson from Seward. And he's got a comfortable lead now. He just has to take it easy, not get hurt, and make sure that he doesn't let anybody else catch up to him.
So 31-44 right up there, and looked pretty strong doing it.
Yeah, and he's taking a really good line. There's a couple of entry points off the top of the mountain that the racers are looking for, and he's taking, I was up there myself last night scouting the entry points for the other racers, and he went right to the one he should have gone to, which is great. It's the same one that Ali Ostrander used in her victory earlier today. He's getting those legs moving. When you've been going uphill, for the viewers out there, you guys have to realize how steep that is. This guy is going from the top of the mountain to the base of the mountain is a mile. And he's going to do that mile on that kind of technical terrain in right at 6 minutes. So for any of you at home that have tried to run a mile in 6 minutes, try running a mile down a mountain on boulders and then through a creek. On slippery rocks, and then descend a cliff and still do it in 6 minutes.
We saw Eric Strapel take a pretty good tumble last year on the way down.
And right behind him, number 2.
There's Eric. He's got he's going to be about 3 minutes back from Scott at this point on the top of the mountain, which is not going to be surmountable unless Scott happens to take a bad fall. But Eric's looking really strong. This is the strongest finish he's ever had.
Number 16, I know when we saw him jump out of the bushes, it surprised you.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Eric is a really strong runner.
Sure.
He was 16th, but he was 16th place last year. So for him to jump from 16 to number 2 is a very large leap. He apparently has been doing some training though, because he's looking good. That's Scott again that we're showing now, and you can see that the dark material that he's running down. That shows you how moist the shale is. It's super soft right now. It is the best shale downhill running conditions we've had in 25 years here, and it makes it a little easier for the guys. It doesn't necessarily help try to break a record because we didn't have any snow this year to slide on, but it does make the downhill running a little bit easier. You'll see Eric slipping on those gloves that he had tucked in the back of his shorts there. A lot of the guys do that. I do it myself because I want to protect my hands on the downhill. Scott doesn't feel like he needs it. He's running with no gloves on at all, and just trusting his feet.
There's about a 2-minute difference in time between those two from when Scott went to the top to Eric as number 2, and Scott just looks comfortable now.
Yeah, he's just flying at this point. He's not too far from the crossover point, halfway. He'll be hitting the crossover point here in just a few seconds. In the background, you can see all the other climbers that are still working their way to the top. Eric's on his way down, and again, being from Seward, he knows the mountain well. He's very well versed in running the scree down, and he's doing really well. That appears to be, I believe that's Kenny. Going around the top. Yeah, that's Kenny Brewer, and he's having a really strong race too. This is a breakout year for him.
You really liked him coming into this thing.
I did. He's had a couple of real strong races already this year, and I expected him to be right up there in the fray.
And of course, great shots right there. The fact that we can have a picture from the top of the mountain and see the folks at the bottom. Yep. That's good. We don't always have that.
No, that is just some fantastic coverage or footage you're getting there. It looks like you're right in front of him right there. I really enjoy that footage. You have to realize we're not right in front of him. That's a drone.
One of those years where Mother Nature is agreeing with us and working it, for sure.
Yeah, these ones aren't. So there's Scott at what we call the crossover. He just went through the line of guys that are still going up. And you guys at home can see he's just a few minutes from being done, and all these other gentlemen are still halfway up.
I've had that experience before. On the other end, not Scott sent those guys.
Yeah. So in 4th place there we got Alexander Eckert, and he's from Fairbanks, and he's having a fantastic year too. He's wearing bib 109, but he sure as heck isn't going to be 109th today.
So it'll be a question now, as we haven't crowned him yet, but it sure looks like it unless we have a serious mishap. Again, the field came in. It didn't have as many as, say, the ladies did. Ali Ostrander really dominated that ladies race today, although Morgan Aratola was right there. Christy Marvin made a push for a while. The men, we knew. Number 1, number 2, number 5, all missing. and it has opened things up for Scott Patterson. Perhaps one of those other 3 guys might have been able to make a push here and make this more of a race.
Yeah, definitely. If we'd have had some of those other guys here, I was really looking forward to seeing if we might have a David Norris, Scott Patterson, Killian Jornet, Nick Elson. I mean, those names, it would have made an amazing race. Not that this one isn't, but it would have been really nice to see the best of Alaska go up against the best in the world.
Well, we'll see. I know that the folks at Mount Marathon would like to have them back there. We'll take a break. Scott Patterson is not. He's on the way down, 37 minutes in. Our coverage of Mount Marathon coming back right after this.
This presentation of the 90th running of Mount Marathon is sponsored in part by Glacier Melt Vodka.
Alaska, where we try to do it all the time. Alaskan spirit is what we love, and what Glacier Melt Vodka is all about. Grown and distilled right here at home from our pristine land and water, it's award-winning taste in your backyard. Glacier Melt Vodka. Catch the true Alaskan spirit.
Out there, it's more than a place. It's a state of mind, an attitude, freedom, fun, no boundaries. It's good times, good friends. And if you want to get out there, there's only one rig that'll really do it. The 2017 Toyota Tacoma. Get out there and get yours today.
For details, see your Alaska Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places.
With you every step of the way.
Welcome back, everybody, and that is a great shot from one of our drones here today. Mount Marathon coverage on KTVA, GCI channel 907, KTVA.com. Scott Patterson trying to make his way down that treacherous hill. Clint has always discussed how difficult it can be, how tricky, even as you are racing and blowing past the field.
Absolutely. Scott's making it look easy, but there's nothing easy about running down that creek bed. It's a section of the mountain we call the gut, and there's a creek running down there, and you have to splash through it. You can see the size of those boulders. A lot of them are covered with lichen and moss, and they're extremely slippery. He's now on what's called the crossover trail, and he has a super commanding lead, even though he keeps looking over his shoulder just to make sure no one wants to be taken off guard. You can see how muddy the trail still is there in some places. He was sliding there. The women had it a lot worse today than the men, but even with Scott there, you can see how muddy that trail is. And when you're trying to run fast, it can be pretty treacherous.
The closest person to him right now is one of ours.
Yeah. So he's going down under the slide there. Yeah, he's going down under the slide now, approaching the cliff face, which is really tricky right now. It's covered with mud, so it's even more treacherous than it normally is. But I don't expect Scott to have any trouble here. You just have to slow down a little bit more than we normally would.
You know, we have to ask John Thane, who's on that camera, how long you thought he could hang out with Scott there. You know, I thought you had at least another couple of minutes at least, you know? Come on.
So we should see Scott pop around the corner here in just any second. He's probably he's enjoying the accolade. When you hit this point in the mountain, you can see the crowd can see you, and they just erupt.
If you're a golfer, this is equivalent to the walk-up 18 as you're about to win a tournament and putt out for it. You know you've got it, the crowd's with you, they know it, and you're able to just soak in that moment, and here he is doing it.
Absolutely. At this point, your feet are just, your legs are just dead because of the up and the downhill. But having 5,000 to 6,000 spectators out there along the entry area, the base of the mountain, and along the road, it's just all of a sudden it just gives you another boost, and you find your energy again, and you're able to bring it home down Main Street.
Killian Jornet-like today, really, the way Killian did it a couple of years ago. Just dominant, the best in the field, and head and shoulders.
Yeah, today was Scott's day. He was head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. Some other really strong races. There's a couple of guys that are actually having real standout races in terms of their own personal bests. But today it was definitely Scott, and he was head and shoulders above everybody else. I'd really like to see Killian come back and see how he can do against the best of the state. But it's still nice to see Scott get the victory that he really deserves.
Yeah, for sure. That's the next thing that I'm sure these race organizers would like to see, is to really start getting some rivalries going here. We obviously know what Norris can do. We've seen today what Scott can do. Can you get Killian Jornet back into it? Perhaps Strable one or two more times there as well. But some of these guys, these up-and-comers, Brewer certainly had a good run as well today too. Get some of these guys here and get the whole field and really see what happens.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic race. That's one I would certainly like to be in the booth to call, because having those guys on the same mountain together is phenomenal. There you see Scott, bringing it home. Eric's charging behind him. And it appears that Eric's gaining ground, but for the folks at home, just a reminder that Scott intentionally took it easy on the downhill because he didn't want to risk injury. There's no way he was going to let this victory get away from him, but that was not him going 100% on the downhill. He wanted to protect himself, and he did, and he's going to take home the prize.
Well, what a strong performance today from Scott Patterson, 25 years old. He, of course, has Olympic aspirations. I'll tell you what, if he's able to approach the Olympics the way he's approached this thing, we're looking at a gold medalist.
Yep, Scott's got a long career still ahead of him, and this year he's right on the cusp of making the Olympic team. Everybody that I speak to in the community thinks that he has a real good shot of making it. He's worked hard for it, and today just is a testament to his fitness. He ran a smooth, easy race. And there just wasn't anybody else in the field that could match him in terms of fitness.
And again, as we've seen so many of these races, all of them in the past, they're another approachable, likable person you can root for and really enjoy, and certainly take part in watching greatness come through here. And it's been a fantastic race. Certainly Eric is putting forth the effort too.
Yeah, it's great to see, to see someone like Eric having such a standout year. I mean, he's gonna have a personal best here by a significant margin, and it's great to see. He's working hard. You can see him swinging those arms and trying to stride out. Scott's got a little more of a relaxed pace going. But for Scott, he was expecting to win. I don't think Eric was expecting second place, so he's had a fantastic day.
Yeah, Scott's making it look easy, Eric not, but let's not forget, Eric is second only to one person here. That's Scott Patterson.
That's right.
Dominant performance today. No surprise as he comes in for the smooth landing. We expected excellence, and that's what we got from Scott Patterson, as Eric Johnson coming right in as well.
Yeah, that's just I'm super happy for him. He's raced this race a lot of years, and this is the best race he's ever had.
We've, of all the performances we've seen today, juniors, women, men, this is probably the surprise of the day right here.
It is. I mean, you can see him pushing. He knows this is the best race he's ever had, probably the fastest time he's ever going to get. Yep, here comes Strable, Ryan Kopsak, Chad Trammell, all three of them together. When he gets down on the road, we'll see them try to pass each other. They won't be that close once we get on the road. And there's Eric crossing the line.
45-23 thereabouts. I think a lot of folks would be happy to take that.
That's a very, very respectful and again for Eric, that's a great race. He just that's the race of his career that I'm aware of.
Well, he's terrific, boy. Eric Johnson, outstanding. All right, in the meantime, Scott Patterson already done and showered and ready to go home, so we better get down to Emily Carlson, who is standing by with our winner, Emily.
I have Scott Patterson here with me. Scott, you were the clear favorite coming in. A lot of people said you were going to win. How did that mess with your head game? How did you prepare for this race?
I mean, it's just a summer race. Skiing's always been my focus, so I was a little nervous, but just I knew I had the uphill. I knew I have the fitness, so I just took it out smooth and tried to build as much of the lead as I can, and I mean, nerves played a little role, but I was feeling good. I've raced big. World Cups feel a little bigger, or like when there's really something on the line, like an Olympic berth or something. This is just for fun.
So we know you want to make the Olympic team. There you go, some more water. So how did that factor into how you prepared for the race as well? Because did you give 100%? What did you give today?
I gave as much as I could on the uphill. I just got back from a U.S. ski team training camp in Soldier Hollow, Park City area. So I was a little off for the uphill. Downhill, I knew I had a huge lead, so I definitely took it a little chill. Didn't want to injure myself. I twisted my ankle a couple times last year. So this year it was just kind of keep it smooth, keep going fast, but don't hurt myself.
We saw you doing the plane arms coming in. Did it feel really good on the down stretch?
Yeah, I mean, it's after coming down so much of the hill, it feels weird to try and turn over fast. But I had that big lead, so I could just kind of cruise. And I figured plane was pretty appropriate for cruising.
Well, Scott Patterson, congratulations on your win, Mount Marathon 2017. Dave, we're going to send it back to you.
Emily, thank you. Scott Patterson, he really did make it look easy today. And as you said, we've seen this in a couple of instances, Clint, where a racer knows he's got it or she's got it and says, you know, I'm going to dial it back, make sure I don't get hurt. That's exactly what Scott Patterson did today. Knew he had the victory, but could have actually pushed and done even faster.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, Scott was capable of going a couple minutes. There's Jim Shine coming down Main Street. We just saw Matthias Messner across the line. He's one of the out-of-state runners that I consider to be a wild card. Looks like he took 4th place or so. Maybe 5th place. But real strong downhiller.
Again, all sub-50 guys and a little bit of makeup paint and the July 4th garb.
Absolutely. People like to get into the spirit of things here.
Did you ever dress up?
No, I'm afraid I did. I guess I was a little too boring.
Put on what works, and that's that.
I like to wear as minimal as possible because you just get sweaty and then you're carrying all this extra weight around with you. But we've got a lot of characters here at Mount Marathon. We had an Elvis Presley guy for years and years who ran this in a full jumpsuit with a wig. Up and down this mountain, and boy, I think he probably sweat 10 pounds every time he raced.
I got more airtime than anyone.
Yeah. There's Jim Shine running down the final stretch.
And looks good.
Yep, looking strong.
Well, a race veteran who's been around this thing a long, long time, one of the really respected guys on the mountain. So Scott Patterson doing what David Norris did last year, what Killian Jornet did 2 years ago, and that's just to really run away from the field, making it look easy. Outstanding performance today from Patterson, as he said, took it easy on the downhill so as to not have to push there. Who knows, if someone were there to push him, he would have had to perhaps put the hammer down and didn't have to do that.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, Scott could have gone at least another minute and a half, 2 minutes faster if he was pushed. And I can tell you, I know Scott, if there had been somebody to push him, Olympics or no Olympics, he would have pushed it all the way to the finish if there had been somebody right there to make him do it.
Well, everybody finishes a different way here.
See, there's some blood. Yeah. There's somebody who tried hard enough, even if he is wearing pink shorts.
Paying the price.
That was Kirk Jacob, by the way. He's one of the fastest road runners for guys in Alaska. There's Tor Christofferson coming down. Another longtime veteran.
Ben Ward right behind him. Ben Ward from Anchorage, topside.
Well, we've seen a lot of the top guys, top 10, 11, 12, make it in. But of course, you've got plenty more who are going the other way. And here are the group just getting to the top right now, finding their way.
Hey, you got all kinds. And right there, you got Martin Martinson, who's a former winner of the race, just going around the rock at the top right now. He's won this race twice, but now he's here just to run and enjoy it. He shares the mountain with his sons. So there are all kinds of runners here. There's some that still have another hour to go.
Yeah, in a different way there with with the right leg in front instead of the straight ahead.
Yeah, which is more of a gallop method. There's Flip Fuldagger. I think John Thane took him up the mountain, or vice versa here recently. And you'll see people, the guys that are struggling here on the screen, but some move really fast on the down. That younger kid there behind he's kind of throwing caution to the wind, going past everybody.
I want to take a time for, again, a salute and shout out to our wonderful crew from all the way at the top of the mountain, down at the bottom, our group in the truck, Trucks, plural.
Big Rock coming.
Wonderful work as always, providing all of these pictures. Doesn't happen by accident. They've been here since last week and the weekend and putting this thing together. Our technical crew working overtime.
Yeah, the footage this year, I have to tip my hat to the station. This is some fantastic footage. A whole new way to appreciate the race, a new perspective.
I must say, you got to appreciate and our tip that happened thanks to our staff and the brass at our company to give us the opportunity to bring this to you. The tradition of Mount Marathon, the 90th running. First race in 1915. There were some races that were missed in the 30s and the 40s, actually the 20s as well. But an opportunity to bring you this tradition, which just keeps getting better and better, and people continue to want to be a part of this thing, and we know that now with the international opportunity, and certainly with social media and the advent of the internet and what that does, and that's given another new chapter to this thing. But it's harder and harder now to be a part of this thing. You see what bids are going for in the thousands of dollars last night.
Right.
The ladies as well. People want to be a part of this thing, and they're willing to pay for it too.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who don't know, there was an auction last night to get the last 10 spots for the women and the men, and some of the men's bibs went for over $3,000. Last year we had a couple that went for $4,500 just so they can get in and put themselves through this torture.
But once you've done it,
yeah, you do get the bug. I mean, you'll hear lots of people down there saying, "I'm never doing this again." And an hour after the race is over, what you'll hear from everybody is, "Well, you know, next year, if I just started training a little bit earlier."
For those who have a watch now, at 53 and change, perhaps the big number they're looking at is 1:00:00, and perhaps to break that hour mark, and that's what they want to do, is knock it down into the 50s from a 60.
Yeah, absolutely. No, breaking an hour here, it's definitely a level that a lot of the runners are shooting for. The original race.
All right, let's get down one more time. Emily Carlson back at the finish line.
Well, we got some water splashing in the face here. It's a celebration. Everyone is, you know, APUC team, got feathers in their hair. We've got 4th of July stuff. Once they finish, once the hurt is off, take a drink of water, you celebrate. The crowd is in it. It's just a good time down here. It's a party. It's the 4th of July. You just ran up and down 3,022 feet. So
Emily,
why not?
They look happier than they should be after that, though.
They do. It's more of a party than I've seen the last few years, Dave.
As they continue to come in there just a couple of minutes before we sign off. So again, want to thank everybody for, again, the opportunity to do it. Oh, they're sprinting there. That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, even at the end, nobody wants to let anybody pass them.
You have that much juice in the tank?
Oh,
wow.
You find it somehow. You find it. Yeah.
Well, again, certainly enjoyed working with you again, Clint. The pleasure is always ours, and with all the insight that you and Holly Brooks and the women's race provided, always good to have you with us on this great day, Mount Marathon, and something that continues to get better and better. And it's a privilege for us at KTVA to be the official station of this race, and continue to bring a tradition that just gets stronger and stronger every year.
Well, thanks for having me out. Anytime you guys need somebody, I'll be sure to come by. It's been a great time, and I actually think the broadcasts just keep getting better and better with the advent of these new cameras and the new drones. It really enhances the experience.
It's a date. Everyone in the truck. Shirley Young, producer and director, making sure it all goes straight. Jim Philly, technically, and our entire crew up and down the mountain in the trucks. The wires, 17 cameras, over 2 miles worth of wire, 13 remote audio systems to make sure that we can hear it from every spot. Another Mount Marathon about to be in the books. The winners are in. Luke Jaeger, junior boy. Molly Gellert, junior girl. Ali Ostrander, the ladies division. Scott Patterson, your men's champion. So for everybody, Clint, Emily, and our entire crew, Dave Goldman, thank you for joining us, everyone. And good afternoon from Seward. Another Mount Marathon is in the books.
This presentation of the 90th running of Mountain Marathon is sponsored in part by Alaska Foot and Ankle Specialists. Stride on.